Saeed Abdul Al-Khabir was born in Harlem, New York on March 22, 1935 as Russell Linwood Thomas and had one sibling, his sister Norma. In 1950, he received a scholarship to study at Music and Art School in New York City, where he graduated in 1953. On February 1, 1954, he came to Montreal with a band and performed at Club Montmartre. He stayed over the summer and played at the Hotel Bout de Lille with a five-piece band that included Al Cowan. By the following winter, Saeed was performing in clubs all over the province of Quebec. In 1955, he married his fiancée, Lucia Ilchenko, with Montreal's jazz icon Charlie Biddle as their best man. 2 years later, he moved to Ottawa with his wife, where he played at Circus Lounge until 1958. While raising his young family, Saeed became the musical director of the Gatineau Country Club in Hull. It is also in Ottawa that Saeed met Duke Ellington in 1958. Impressed by his playing, Duke asked him to come on the road with him. However, Saeed and his wife, already expecting their third child, made the decision not to go with him. Nonetheless, they maintained close contact with Duke and corresponded regularly. As band leader at the Gatineau Club, Saeed was the musical director for many of the Ed Sullivan Show entertainers that passed through. He eventually acquired his Canadian citizenship because he loved Canada and Canadian people so much and wanted to raise his children there. As Saeed's reputation was spreading fast as a great musician, he started performing and recording for the CBC radio programs under Peter Shaw and also performed with Canadian folk singer Tom Kynes. He then started performing at weddings, bar mitzvahs, and other social functions. Later, he became a teacher and started to teach music in high school, namely Fisher Park High School and Philemon Wright. In 1971, he was offered a teaching job at the University of Montreal to teach jazz in the music department, where he worked for 10 years in the university's Harmonie Scolaire and Atelier Jazz. It is also in 1971, after an intensive and soul-searching quest for truth about life, his roots, God, and after reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, that Saeed and his family embraced Islam and changed their name legally. Saeed and his wife made their pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca. Saeed then became very active in the Muslim community in Montreal and abroad. He established a small mosque and was an imam who performed at least 125 marriages. He was also instrumental and on the board of directors of many Muslim Islamic organizations. Saeed and his wife Amina also participated in countless charitable events for not only Muslims, but all needy people, regardless of their religion, race, or nationality. In fact, the great boxer Muhammad Ali visited Saeed and his family in their home in the town of Mont-Royal in Montreal. In the 1980s, after raising his teenagers, Saeed was blessed to be a part of two of the greatest jazz legend bands. Firstly, Saeed went on to tour with the Duke Ellington Orchestra and played sax, flute, and clarinet. This is where Saeed met another great jazz player, Kenny Garrett, who was also in the band. When Saeed brought his daughter Saida and wife Amina on one of the tours, Saida caught Kenny's discerning eye. The two eventually got married in Montreal, while Saeed and Nasir were performing with Dizzy Gillespie.
I met Kenny in the summer of 1980 when he and my dad, Saeed, were members of the Duke Ellington Orchestra. So that summer, my mother and I went on tour with the band, and after the 2 weeks, I knew I wanted to marry Kenny. So fast forward to 1984, we married in Montreal, and at that time, my dad and my brother Nasir, the drummer, were members of Dizzy Gillespie's band. So they happened to be playing in Montreal the week we got married, and we invited Dizzy to come to our wedding reception. I'd like to take this time to let everyone know how proud I am of my father and how much I love him. He has represented Canada on 6 continents playing jazz for thousands of people around the world. Dad, I love you so much. Papa, je t'aime beaucoup.
In the mid-1980s, after the Duke Ellington Orchestra tours, Saeed hooked up with the legendary Dizzy Gillespie. Saeed and his son Nasir on drums both toured the world with Dizzy for approximately 4 years. There were countless raving reviews about Saeed's playing, and Saeed performed in the documentary film Dizzy Gillespie, A Night in Havana, which featured Dizzy and many great Cuban musicians, including Gonzalo Rubalcaba. Saeed also performed in the video Dizzy Gillespie, A Night in Chicago. With Dizzy, many great musicians sat in with the band, namely Winston Marsalis, George Benson, Larry Coryell, Branford Marsalis, John Faddis, Herbie Hancock, and many others. Amongst the highlights of playing and touring with Dizzy Gillespie was a California tour with Stan Getz and Dave Brubeck, a historic performance at the Montreal International Jazz Fest, a 2-week jazz cruise on the SS Norway, and a memorable tour of Australia. By the 1990s, Saeed was involved in many solo projects where he recorded and performed his own original music. One project, put together with friend Big Black, entitled The Openers, brought Saeed to the Ivory Coast in Africa alongside Kool and the Gang. In early 2001, Saeed suffered his first stroke, and for the next few years had to deal with many health issues to regain neurological functions. In 2004, he suffered a second stroke, which affected his ability to play the saxophone. Saeed was a man for all seasons. After hearing Saeed play, the great Pierre Elliott Trudeau went to Saeed and expressed his great respect and admiration for his musical talent. In fact, the last time Saeed's son Nasir met Mr. Trudeau was across the street from L'Astral at the Spectrum at a Miles Davis concert for the Montreal International Jazz Fest. Trudeau was hanging out with his friends, and Nasir thought he was so cool. What was exposed here is only a very small sample of Saeed's incredibly rich life. There is a saying, behind every great man is a great woman. And after 56 years of marriage, 5 children, 7 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild, Saeed, without a doubt, if he could say it, would give the praises to the Almighty God Allah and give the thanks and appreciation to his incredible wife, friend, and protector, Amina. Saeed's wife is planning on having a huge event in the near future to fully show his incredible accomplishments, not only as a musician, but also as a caring human being.